Hello there, I'm Rue. Well, technically he's not. He's just my digital sig-fig avatar, but since I currently refuse to show my face, he's who you're stuck with. However, this was the first custom minifigure I ever made, and over the 3 years since, my style has gotten a lot more refined. Even in just the last year, my design workflows have changed a lot, thus making my sig-fig and a video that I made about my minifigure creation last year feel outdated. So, I'm here today to update both. In this video, I will take you through the templates and softwares that I use to create my minifigures, using my new sig-fig avatar as an opportunity to demonstrate how all of this comes together to create a cohesive final minifigure design. Sounds good? Well, okay then. I'll leave it up to my past self to show you all that, but before I do, I'd like to just note that the links for the softwares and a Google Drive containing my Affinity templates will be in the description. Enjoy the video. I hope it's useful. Okay, so what we have here is Affinity by Canva, and this is where we're going to make our actual minifigure prints. As you can see, if you go into templates, these are the templates that I have linked in the description, and you're going to add them by just pressing this plus sign here and link the folder. So here I've got our minifigure templates and all 4 of them here, and I'm going to show you simply how to use these with my sig-fig design. So you might notice these 2 here, our torso and our torso back, look pretty similar, but there is a slight difference between the 2, which I'll talk you through right now. So I'm going to open a new file of the torso type, and the same for the back torso, and new, and that's just in home, torso back, and you can see these, they look the same. In fact, this shape here, the polyline, is the same, it's just its position that's different. So if we unlock it, we can see the positions for the center here, like so. But if we open the other file, the position is slightly different. You can see this one's at 504 pixels for the front torso, but 496 pixels for the back. And you would think you'd want it central, and as this document is 1000 pixels across, that would make the center 500. But in actuality, that's not the case because of Bricklink Studio's weird tendencies. So we can actually visualize this if I copy this polyline and add it to here. And now we're going to change the colors of these just a slight bit. And then we're going to have a third one, which is central. So this one is going to be at 500. And then this color, I don't know, we can make this one green. So you can kind of see the 3 different polylines here, where we've got this blue bit, this green bit, and the dark blue bit. And we're just going to export this as a PNG. Just going to export that simply. And then if I open our part designer app, I'm then going to apply this to a torso, and that should show you why I have them offset like that. Okay, so now it's loaded, and we can create a new minifigure. So we're just going to click on minifig here, and then we're just going to go to our folder, which was this one. We're just going to put our print on both the front and the back of this torso and add it to the viewport. And you can see that the green part is actually off center here, whereas you'd expect it to be central because it's central in the print. But we've got a nice outline here around where the light blue is, whereas the dark blue is tucked up really close, and even the green is. And then the opposite is going to be the case on the back side. Don't ask me why Studio does this, it just does, so that's why our print templates are offset. However, the interesting thing is if we insert another custom minifig but don't print it, so just going to add this to the viewport, and then we were to put the print on like so. That was the wrong button. Just going to put the print on like so. Now it's going to be centered around the... Well, I thought it'd be centered around the green print. Turns out it's even less centered. So ignore me, it is even worse if you do it this way. So basically, my prints are just designed around the fact that you're just going to insert a minifigure like this, put the prints on, and then add it to the viewport, rather than having the minifig part in the viewport already, then print on. So it's just something to think about. Just remember, when you're printing on it, always just create a new minifigure and then so forth. However, we don't actually have a design yet, so we're going to get back to Studio Part Designer much later in the video. But for now, we're just focused on Affinity by Canva. And what we're going to want to do is actually print on this torso design. So we're going to get rid of these two. And now we're back in business. So, for the minifigure, we're now going to want to print on this polyline. So we're always going to draw inside of the shape. So like, if we were to draw something random like that, of course, that's useless. We're always going to want a line thickness of 2.2 or 4.3 for our minifigures, and we're just going to have that always inside here, so we're always drawing inside this shape, which makes sure there's nothing outside of this. And then when we're finished drawing, we just remove the colour from the outer, and then we're just left with the actual print that goes on the torso. So that's kind of how the template works, and that's very different to what we did in our previous video when I was just drawing on this blank canvas. But if you were to do that, if you were to just draw on this, let's say we just put this whole rectangle here and make that green for the sake of visuals, and then we export that as a PNG and just put that here. Sure, we can replace it because it's nothing, and then we can just put that on here. You can see the difference here is going to be that this doesn't stop towards the edges, which is what a minifigure print should actually do. Realistically, minifigures have this slight outline around the print where there is no print. However, just printing directly onto that rectangle does not produce that. In fact, we have printing on this corner here, and even on the top of the torso. That's just awful. Like, we do not want that. That is why we have our template polyline. But now, we're actually going to create the print. And if you're already familiar with drawing in 2D graphics on softwares like this, then you could probably skip the next part and just move on to the timestamp on screen now. But for everyone else, I'm just going to talk through some of the basics of drawing and then finish off this torso design for my sig-fig. Let's start by just getting rid of that. So, what do I want this design to look like? You can see on screen now what my old figure looks like. It's kind of got this Jedi-ish design to it, because Ninjaru 66 was originally going to be very much Ninjago and Star Wars. Of course, that didn't happen in the end. The Ninjago took over. But there's still those elements of Star Wars in the design. I want to keep that, because inherently there is a bit of Star Wars meme-ishness with my videos and the hello there. But, yeah, I want to keep the Jedi sort of in there. It's probably not going to be as heavy an element. Like, I'm thinking of having it be somewhat akin to an Anakin from the Clone Wars design. So I'm going to import some reference material for that. So we're going to just place some images, and I'm just going to go into this reference images folder, collect these, and just slap them in. So like, not that I'm going to actually copy anything for verbatim, but there's stuff here that would be quite cool to implement. So the actual view, I don't want to clip it to canvas just so we can have this reference material outside of the polyline. However, this is not going to export when we export it as PNG. Only this center part will, which is good for our purposes. So I'm thinking, so you can see on this Anakin here, this being from the animated Clone Wars series, he's got this armor plate design, and I think that would be something that's cool. In a way, we could make it more Ninjago-ified though, and then have the Jedi robes come down, sort of as a ninja costume as well. I quite like stripes as well, so maybe this thing could be stripy, and with some gold, black, and orange as my main colours. Of course, we can see how LEGO designers implement that into a minifigure of their own, where they've got this thick grey outline with these lines coming down. So that kind of thing is interesting. Of course, I'm not copying the design, I just want to take some elements from it, Fundamentally, this has got to be my own. It is my sig-fig after all, but there are things that I like about that design, so I'm evidently going to use them. But what we're going to start with is some shapes, because shapes are quite cool for designs like this. Like, there's drawing freehand and there's using shapes, and they kind of both useful tools, because you can get more precise with the shapes than you can with the pencil, which I will go over very shortly. So I'm just going to drop this in here. I'm probably going to use a gunmetal grey colour. Now you might be wondering, these colours here, where are they from? Well, they're actually from Rubricable's colour catalogue, and I just put them in here as a new palette, which you can do pretty easily. So that's going to make sure that my colours on this minifigure always match up with the official colours of LEGO Plastics. So therefore it looks good, and it looks like it matches. Whereas that's not something I did with some of my early designs, such as my original sig-fig, which isn't the one that you've been seeing in this video. The one in the video is a slight modified version that I made when I made the YouTube channel, a year later than when I made this sig-fig. But originally the colours didn't match, and so you can kind of see that once you know. But we're going to put this in here, like that. And this is going to be the start of our armor design. And I think I might give it some round shoulder pads rather than the sloping that Anakin's has. So we can kind of just adjust this oval to the position we want it in. I think this looks cool. Sort of like that. I might refine it a bit when I'm not talking to you, but this is kind of what I want to go for with the design. Of course, there's a big motif in Anakin's torso, which is this part that goes down in the middle, and I like that. That is something I want to keep in mind. So, just gonna bring this down here like so. This allows us to move the shapes and pull them around like so. This kind of shape is cool, and we're just gonna copy this to the side maybe. I don't know. It's a bit just modifying these. Make sure they're centered along that 504 pixels. That's going to be an important number to know for these torsos. Yeah, that looks like a good shape for our torso. Of course, we haven't got this shoulder pad mirrored on the other side. There's a few ways we can do that. I think the easy one is we're going to copy and paste it. That's with the Control-C, Control-V shortcut. And then we're just going to use this to flip it in the horizontal. And then that's going to make sure you line it up like so. I think it can go a bit more to the side. Then we're going to click on these two ellipses and just recenter them about 504. And there we go. There is our symmetrical armor design. But this doesn't have any outlines yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to group these together. And I'm going to bring in a rectangle. This is going to be a big rectangle like this, so that it surrounds the entire group. We're then going to use the Shape Builder tool. And what the Shape Builder tool does is that it allows us to remove and add shapes together. So we want to combine all these four into one. So what we're going to do is we're just going to press Alt and remove the outside from the rectangle. Then this group can be hidden, and we're just left with this curve. And now, wait a minute. I think I rushed here. This oval's not at the same height as this one. Give me a sec to correct all this, and then I'll be back with you. So I've just cleaned up that design a bit. Sorry, it can get a bit messy when you're rushing. But now with that, we can add the outlines. So I might just put a gold simply just for the sake of visual. And for the outline of something big like this, we're always going to use the 4.3 px outlines. So that just outlines it like so. And that is much different than what we'd get if we just outlined the group, which is why we end up using the Shape Builder tool, because if we use 4.3 px here, you can see it's included things like this and this. Of course, sometimes that's a cool thing to do, and sometimes I will just have these curved bits here with the outlines, but not here. However, I don't know what I want to do with this yet, so I might end up with those shoulder pads with the gold. I haven't decided. However, there is another thing I want to show you before I just completely time-lapse this whole thing, and that would be with the pen tool. And with the pen tool, we can just draw shapes like so. Of course, this shape is pretty useless. And we can just alter these with the nodes. It's a pretty simple way of drawing instead of using a pencil like this. This is what I tend to use with the pen tool. With the nodes, you can alter them as to your liking, like here. Just kind of want it to float down as a ninja suit design. We probably need a few less of these nodes. Like here. But this here you can see is a smooth continuation. But if we want a point, we're going to press the Alt key and then just alter the flow, like so. With this, get a nice, wide, open ninja torso. Just give me a second. Actually, it might be a bit more than a second. I'm just trying to figure out how this torso should look as I go. Kind of want it to be a bit asymmetric under here, though. There is a lot of trial and error in torso design there. And with the legs, of course. Pretty much the whole minifigure. Pretty much anything Lego, there's a lot of trial and error. Just go through, figure out what looks good. But yeah, I think I'll just continue working on this, and if there's anything interesting to talk about, I'm just going to pause the time lapse and then talk about it. Okay, so it's been a bit longer than I thought it would be before I talk again. It's been about an hour actually of designing. A little longer because of taking a few breaks, of course. But this is the design so far. And there's actually quite a lot to talk about, as you might have seen in that time lapse. So I might just get into it, but I'm not sure how much detail I should go into, because like a lot of these things are very specific to this designer, things I've never done before. But I just kind of want to give you some basic techniques that you can use for your own figures rather than replicating this one exactly, because, you know, this is my figure. But I want you to make your figures, which are going to be very different to this. So you can see, it does still have a bit of that Anakin influence, but it's very much something that I've made my own now. And we can kind of get rid of these reference images now, because they're a bit useless. But yeah, so let's talk about some of those things that I've done in the last hour's worth of time-lapse. Kind of started the hour by filling out the armor design with some circles and stuff, just kind of putting in that basic shape, which was then improved with some more inner circles and a few screws that come around the shoulder pad. Now I've only done that on one side at the moment, but I will mirror that very shortly. These circles were curved around the shoulder pad using a strange technique that's probably not the best way of doing this, but it's just kind of using the equidistant distance between the dots by rotating them around each other and so forth with approximate distance between the circle and the lines either side. After that, I then moved on to the central portion, which I decided to have a line with a gap and then a line around the outside. Now, the way I wanted to move around that so that there's equidistant distance between the orange lines is actually a fun bit of maths. And now, if we go back to the design, you can see here that this curve has a stroke of 4.3 pt. And that's kind of what we wanted. I said 4.3 or 2.2 for the finer details. However, if we turn this off, you can see there's a much thicker line behind it. And this thicker line is that 4.3 pt plus some. So like, if we took this down to 4.3, it would be exactly on that orange line. But we've if we've wanted to add some, so we've done double the added part. And then same again here. So we've got this, and now we want to add 4.3 PT, but that's going to add to both sides, including the underneath of this shape. So instead, we want to add 8.6 PT, which gives you this 30.3. Let me show you that on something else, because I'm thinking of doing it for this armor design. So I'm going to copy this curve, and this one underneath, I'm going to switch the black and gold around so it has a gold outline. And the stroke on this is now going to be the 4.3 PT of the black line. And then I want a thin 2.2 PT outline around the armor. So what we're going to have to do for that is we're going to have to double the 2.2, which gives us 4.4. 4.3 plus 4.4 gives us 8.7. And it's outlined like so. And then we're going to copy this one again. Just reorder them. Now, we've got 8.7 for the gold line. And now I want to add another 4.3 PT either side. So that gives us 8.6. 8.6 plus 8.7 is going to give us 17.5. And there we go. Perfect thickness for all of that. And you can see that can be quite a cool technique. It's probably not the most useful, though I have used it in a few minifigures, and it can be quite cool. Now, after that, I then got to drawing some creases into the fabric on the design. And this is just kind of using our node tool and pen, as I mentioned before. But there is an interesting thing with these pointed creases. This is actually something I've done quite recently, that just drawing a pointed crease like that, it's going to taper off to a really thin section, which doesn't look too great when applied to the minifigure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 0.5 PT outline around it, and that makes it look a bit more smooth, while still maintaining the same general shape. I also wanted some more orange on this design, so I ended up with these swirls, which are made by constructing these rectangles around in a swirly pattern, and then we use the shape builder tool as before. There's also these straps. The straps kind of tied the whole thing together, because I wasn't sure about the swirls until I added the straps, but I think it works quite well, as it complements each other. And then I sorted out some colours along the way, and that gives us with this design that I have now. And I think it looks quite good. However, some things haven't been mirrored yet, such as this circular section here. So to mirror it, we're going to use one of our other methods, which is to draw a rectangle. Now this rectangle, the edge needs to be at 504 px, as it is. Wait, does that mean this line's not? It's not 500. There we go, that's better. It's not perfectly. There we go. And now we're just going to get this rectangle. I'm just going to put these circular pad pits inside and just reflect it and make sure the edge is exactly on the other edge and that they're aligned elsewhere. And there we go. This method works a lot of the time when details are on the far side of the rectangle, but if something's in this central portion, it doesn't work because the pixel error when you do it, because like there is a tiny gap between the two rectangles, and that shows when you put the minifig print on. Because we're currently in vector mode, but it exports as a pixel image. So yeah, that's something you got to be aware of. But now, my name is Ninjaroo66, And that number 66 is quite important to the whole channels. So I want to include it on my design still. It is on the original, it's on the back print, but I think I'm going to put it on this armor, like here. But instead of the character 6, I'm going to use the Ninjago symbols. So what I've done is I have gotten this chart. Now this chart shows us all of the Ninjago symbols, this being the Ninjago language. What we want is the number 6 in Ninjago, which is just conveniently 3 rectangles stacked on top of each other. We can quite stylize this. So we could have kind of a stylized 6 on both sides, maybe mirrored. So that's what I'm going to do now. So we're just going to start by drawing a rectangle. This rectangle is going to be black for now. We're just going to stack these on top of each other, like so. And then we can just get rid of this, because, like, we know what our 6 is. Gee, are there any interesting characteristics here? I mean, the middle one is a bit longer on that image, and the bottom one's a bit smaller. But characteristically, we can just do however we like now, because this is going to translate to the character 6. It doesn't look good, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these rectangles and we're going to convert them to curves. Now this gives us our nodes, which we can now just easily use this node tool here and just tweak a bit, give it some more angular feel, a bit more character. And this will make it feel a bit more lively than just having 3 rectangles. So just gonna keep working on this, like so. There we go. That can be our 6. We can just tilt it a bit, maybe enlarge it. Now it doesn't look very good yet, but we can stylize it, work around it, make it look pretty cool on our final model. And I guess that's what I'm going to do now, and then reflect it on the other side, kind of. You know, ideas. This design, obviously I've been working on it for well over an hour, but it's still far from complete. There's still messy things. I'm not fully on board with what I've done here with the cloth. I might add an extra black outline there. We'll see. Maybe an extra color of fabric. I mean, there's not a lot of colors in my color scheme. I like orange and black because that's cool. But then again, that's a bit bordering on coal, which is where we have the tan. Might add some... what goes with this? Maybe I used a reddish orange. That would be cool. Oh well, I'll keep working on it, and I'll see you in a bit. And so, here we have it. Here is the full front torso print now finished. Things that I've added are, of course, those 66 there. Is reflected, which I guess is possible for this version of 6, whereas it wouldn't with our character of 6. I've also got these vents here. I was going with flames early on, but it didn't work out. And I also simplified some of the creases here. I didn't, in the end, add an extra fabric colour because it's quite a cluttered design already. But, yeah, this is the torso print. It will go on a black background, of course, which is why I've removed that. And all we have to do now is export this as a PNG. And this is going to be our torso. And now that's ready to put on our minifigure later. But first we have to work on all the rest of the prints, which we have our entitled file here for the back torso print, which I'm going to make now. The hardest print actually to make is the front torso print, because no, I'll take that back. The longest print to make is the front torso print. The back torso print is much easier because you already have the design elements from the front. You just have to carry them over to the back and make sense of it. So there's not a lot for me to actually show, but something I often do is that I'll copy this and I'll put it on top but mirror it and just have it lined up, and then turn the opacity right down so now I can see where all of the elements of the front torso are. So if anything wraps around the torso print, then it's going to line up precisely what I draw on top. So like if I wanted to continue these straps, I mean, the best option is going to be to just copy them straight from here wherever I put them. They're in this group here. And just copy these things. And then go into our actual polyline and just drop them in like so. That's going to be the best way to line them up. But if it's something else, or if I wanted these to have a different pattern, then I just need to make sure that they line up here, like so. But yeah, essentially, now I'm just going to design the back torso print. I shan't show much of this, just as I'll put it in as time-lapse footage and that'll be it. Because I don't want this video to be ridiculously long. But I'll finish this up and then we'll talk about the leg prints, because they are quite tricky. Okay, so that took a bit longer to design than expected, mainly because I was struggling with this central portion here. I couldn't quite figure out what I wanted to be there. I had several variations, one which was this wooden part, and then another with a dragon design, but we settled on this. It's quite simplistic, but it's just the letter R in Ninjago, which kind of fits because Ninjaroo 66 I am Roo, so the first letter R works. Same way that in the ninjas they would have C for Cole, K for Kai, so forth. So yeah, that's the design basically. Don't think there's much else to say. A lot of this is reused from the front, except this armor up here, which uses the same technique still. So yeah, that's the back torso. So just gonna export that as well alongside the torso. Now the legs. So we're going to open a new file of type legs. So this is what we have going on for the leg template. This is how it's going to look when we print it on the minifigure, but more often than not, this is how you're going to want to design the top portion of the minifigure, and then you'll do the feet later if you're going to give it feet. But this just kind of lays it out so you can have the parts that overlap onto different bits of the design. You know, do what I just said. This is an interesting design for the template because you can see this leg is much wider than this one. There's also this gap in the hips, and this is a thin gap, whereas this is thicker. This is all weird stuff, but it is how Studio behaves as a software. It will get the print in perfect position. However, there are some weird things I need to talk about, such as drawing a straight line down on here. Okay, let's just do an example. Let's say this. Say I wanted that on my leg print. I don't know why, it looks awful, but let's say you did. Right, the reason there's this red and green divide on the template is that this part needs stretching downwards to be in line here. So what you'd do is it would take two copies of this. One of them goes in the green, the other one goes in the red. And then the red one is compressed down to here. And then we can remove the colour. And then when we export that and import it in Studio, it's going to be in line. Let me just show you that. So we're going to go in Studio. We're going to insert a new custom minifigure. Just going to put the legs on like so. And add to viewport. So you can kind of see what we want here, where everything's perfectly aligned up with where they should be on the minifigure. See, with this, our green and red portions and so forth. And look, our gold is perfectly in line. And that's not something you would expect. Like, if you look at this, you don't think that's going to line up perfectly, but when you see it on the minifigure, that is a straight line. So yeah. So what you basically do is that... Actually, let me bring back all the stuff I just got rid of. What you're going to do is, to start with, we're going to use this one. We're going to draw on here. Blue parts are for the hips, the rest is for the legs. And then going to expand it out to here, drag all the pieces to where they are on this version, stretch, squeeze some things, and then we're going to export the hips once, and then the legs for the other one. They're going to be imported to Studio Part Designer separately rather than together, and that will give us our final design. But I'm just going to start drawing, and then hopefully what I said will make more sense in a bit. So, I'm going to start with this blue rectangle, and in here, you're going to start by making it orange, and then this is going to be our belt section. We're going to have a belt on this ninja design. We're going to have that bit going down there, like so. And this is just kind of a classic belt design from Ninjago here that I'm doing right now, with the crisscross of fabric. Let me just correct some things, make it perfect. Ooh. But then we might want this one to actually be outside of the rectangle, such that it covers the full design, and then it can continue onto this leg as a hanging down piece of fabric. However, still want to give it some curl up here. Give it a little bit like that. Yeah, that looks cool. And then just kind of give it a crease in here. Maybe another one from the other side. And they can both go in here. Then we're going to take one copy of this, put it in there, and then the other copy can go in the correct leg portion, which is this rectangle here. Of course, this one can also have a crease in it, but maybe not so far. Maybe it can just end like that. It just kind of runs through. And all of these should, I forgot to do that, have thickness of 0.5, so they're not too pointy. So we're just gonna go through, make sure everything's 0.5. And this, just replace this one with that one. And there we go. It's a bit curly there. Wrong one. I thought I'd selected this one. So you can kind of see we're just drawing the print on as before. It's pretty simple until it comes to separating the print out and making sure everything's perfectly aligned. So I'm just going to work on this, and then I'll be back when I come to that bit. Okay, so here we have the leg prints that I've finished. You might have been able to see some things that I did to create this during the time-lapse, such as bringing on the torso polyline here, just to make sure that things were aligned perfectly, such as these continuing lines here, and these swirls and such. This gold belt was originally orange, but I changed it to be gold so there wasn't too much orange on the legs, though I still want to keep the orange because it's my favourite colour. Just, it doesn't want to be duo colour, it wants a bit more of a splash in the design. But what we're going to do with this leg print now is that we're just going to copy this, and then we're going to take one of these and we're just going to move all the pieces to match on top of this group here. So we're just going to go into the group, select this polyline here, and then just this one here, just drag it on top and stretch it out like so. And then this one, and again that, so it lines up on top. And I'm selecting the ones on the bottom just so that it has it fresh in memory, so it will align properly. As you can see, it's giving me these handy alignment options. And there we go, there's all the pieces stretched as it should be, and we can remove the background colour from anything that's black and get rid of this. Now, I could have used footprints, but we don't want that for this particular design. So what we finally do is we're going to export this as 2 prints. This as the hips, oops, not that. And then this as the legs. And we do that separately because if we look at Studio here, you can see the blue from the hips does slightly come onto the side of this leg piece here. And that's not desirable. Also, if we bent the leg or just pull it out like this, you can see printed on the top. That's not good. So we print them separately and then they'll be applied separately. As I can show you right now, if we just put in our minifig here, got our torso, and then just put in the hips, and add that to the viewport, and then we can insert the custom minifigure and put the legs in like so. And then we don't need a lot of these parts, we can just get rid of them. And yeah, these are basically the parts we'll need for the minifigure. But there's also the face print. So that would be the last thing we do. But we can save this for now. And let's just call it parts. It's just my default part file name. It's nothing creative, but it will do the job for this. It's just the minifigure parts after all. You can see it's a pretty cool design. Now there's one last thing that we need to do print wise, and that's the face. So we're back in Affinity here, and we're just going to take this file and just going to create a new one of it. This is the face template, and this is pretty self-explanatory, but we've got the eyes here. This is the position where the eyes should be, and they're already here. So we've got 2 variations. We've got open eyes, and we've got partially closed. Of course, you might want other things, so you can create new expressions of the eyes, but they will want to be in this general position. So we can just kind of leave the eyes as they are. And then these red lines here are kind of like where the features should be. So the mouth should be, of course, around here, and then we've got the eyebrows up here, and so forth. So, for my character, he's gonna have a bit of a different eyebrow shape to last time, because I give him bushy eyebrows, but like my eyebrows don't really do that, so we're gonna give it a bit more of an elongated point at the end. And you can see here, this node is not a smooth transition, it's got one of these corners on it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to convert to smooth, and then we can make this perfect in shape. Of course, we don't want this to be red. You can just make this any color, such as brown, and you can see it's just in that position where we've got the red eyebrow behind it. We don't really care about the red eyebrow, we're just using it for positioning. We can just say that that is our eyebrow. Just tweak it a bit. Yeah, that's good. We can actually reflect this eyebrow on the other side. If we go to the normal select, just reflect it and just put that where the other one is. And there is the character's eyebrows. But we can actually smooth out the points a little by putting our brush stroke to 0.5 like before, and that just rounds out the point rather than it being a abrupt end. Final thing is the mouth. Of course, we can add other features afterwards. And I'm going to have facial hair, so we're just going to draw a mouth shape here, real quick. This can be a bit rough, or of course convert this node to a point, from pointed to a smooth. Then we can just move these around, get the mouth shape we want. Of course, the thickness of this mouth is going to want to be 4.3 pt, and we can make that black. And now that's just kind of the position we want it in. However, this doesn't have much expression, it's just kind of an empty shape. So what we're going to do is going to fill the inside with black, and then we're going to take out a rectangle. This is just going to be a white rectangle, and it's going to sit inside the mouth as teeth. And then we're going to copy and paste another rectangle inside there, and that's going to be the bottom set of teeth. Of course, you can get some expression that way. And so that's the basics of using this facial template. Of course, I'm going to add facial hair now. There's no specific way of doing that. I haven't done a lot of experimenting with facial hair though, so this might take a while. Just gonna time lapse it and then I'll show you the end result. Okay, so here we have our face design. This looks good, I think. It looks a bit older than the face on my old sig-fig, but that was made 3 years ago when I was still a teenager, so I have aged quite a bit since then. Got a bit of beard now, and I think this looks cool. This We can't fully tell how good it is yet though until we actually put it on the minifigure. So what we're going to do is we're going to first save this as face, then we're going to export it as a PNG like so, and then we're just going to go in and attach that to a custom minifigure. Like so. Yeah, there is our face print. I think maybe the mouth could be a bit wider, but it will do for now. We're gonna go and export these to Studio. And now we can finally use our printed parts to make a minifigure. So what we had here was Studio Part Designer. And now we're going to open the main Studio. Okay, so when Studio opens, you should see a layout like this. Of course, these pieces might be a different color. This is what I used last, probably for Skylar. It'll be in a new file. We're just going to go to our custom parts, and you can see a load of things here. But we're going to filter for those pieces we just made. Now you won't have so many things to go through because you haven't made anything before, I don't assume. I'm just going to set this to black, and we're going to find our new torso print. Then we're going to search for hips. And we're going to search through all of these. And it's this one here. Then leg. That's that one there. Then there's another leg, which is this one here. Also got the head minifig. Now I've got a lot of these to sort through. Gonna make it the light nougat, which my face should be. You can see some of the old ones in here. Some from various projects, and there is our new head. Now the rest of our stuff we're going to get from the main. So we're going to go for arm. Just going to go all the way down to where we get to minifigures. We're just going to, where are they? Here we go. This can be orange. And then so can this other one. And we need hands as well. For the hairpiece, I still want the Lloyd hair. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put this hide unavailable parts and selected color on. We're going to go for tan, because we know that hairpiece exists in tan. We're just going to search for hand. No, not hand. Hair. And this will give us all the minifigure hair pieces that are available in that color. And here it is. And I'm just gonna now swap this to reddish brown, like so. Here's our minifigure design, though I'm gonna add some armor. Sorry, that was the English spelling. It uses American. I'm going to take off that. Actually, put that back on. We're gonna go for gold. And I want this Tournament of Sorcerers armor. So just gonna make sure that the head doesn't collide with the armor piece. Get a mask. Actually, better ninja half mask will be in here, like so. Make this orange, and then we have to. In fact, the easiest way to do this would be to copy this, put the head on here, put the half mask on there, and then move the head with the move the head with the half mask on onto here. Now we just need to bring this down. Which it's not wanting to, so I'm going to use this move tool. I'm just gonna try and get it as low as we can without a collision, which there should be right now. Sometimes this can be a bit finicky. I hate putting heads on minifigures. It's probably the worst part of this. You know what? Do it cheeky. He's got his head there. Copy it onto here. Put the half mask on. Take this hairpiece off. Put these two on. Like so. And there we go. There's our minifigure. Though, actually, I might change the colour of the hands to black. There we go, he looks cool. Though I think I might, if we look at the head, it's not perfect. I might fix that up, give him some new expressions. And then, to render them, you just use this render option here, choose the lighting and whatnot, and then press render. So I'm just going to go fix him up a little, and then I will show you the final minifigure.
Hello there! May I introduce you to me? The avatar is a little older now, as aforementioned, but you can see how the sum of the elements that I've developed over the course of this video come together to create a very detailed, very expressive minifigure design. This is what I wanted for my newer avatar, and is the final design that I was going for. However, there is a complicated process that I haven't shown you yet, that is important for when you want to use LEGO molds that don't exist in Studio, be it parts that exist in other softwares or self-made CAD models and so forth. For most minifigures, this isn't important, and if you aren't interested in this problem, then that's great. You've essentially learnt all the basics of minifigure design using Affinity by Canva and Bricklink Studio. Go! Make the custom minifigures that you want to make, and feel free to tag any of my social media accounts on any posts of minifigures that you make using what you've learned from this video. I can't wait to see your creativity. But for those who are interested, let's continue the video by tackling the problem of what to do when a piece doesn't exist in Bricklink Studio. here I have Mecha Bricks open, and I'm just going to search for a ninja hood piece, and maybe this one here. This piece doesn't exist in Studio, at least it didn't the last time I checked. So what if we wanted this in Studio? Well, there's a few steps we'll have to go through. Number one, we have to download this. So we're going to have to export it as a wavefront object. So we're just going to export that. And this is going to download, where we can just take this from downloads, just extract it to our design folder. And that's just going to extract this untitled model here, which we can now open with Blender. And I'll explain why we're doing this in a minute. So we're just going to do a new general file. I'm going to delete this default thing using a right click. And we're going to import our object file, which is in here. We're just going to take the object file, import it like so. And here we have it. Now, this thing has one default part color, but what we want is to have an object with multiple colors. So like for my minifigure, if we wanted a black headband with an orange base, so how do we do that? Well, we're going to select all the faces that we want to make black and all the faces we want orange, and we're going to save them as separate objects to import to Studio. It all makes sense in a bit. So we're going to press 3. No, actually, we're going to go into edit mode. Then we're going to press 3 to go into face selection mode. We're just going to select all our faces for the part we want to be black. Just meticulously go through and select them all. And then once we've got all our faces, we're then going to go into this materials tab. We're going to add a new material, and new, we're just gonna go for a random color, just make it black for now, I guess. We're going to assign those to this material. That's cool. Now you can see part 1 has 2 materials. It's got this new material, which is showing us white even though the actual material is black. And we've got the original green. But we now want these to be separate objects so we can export them and import them to Studio as separate things. Because if we did it as one, then it would lose the color because it doesn't use the .mtl file, it only uses the object. So what we're going to do is we're going to press P and separate these by material. And there you go, we've got part 1 and part 002. And you can see if we move one, we've just got the white, and then if we move the other, we've just got the green. Okay, and now we're going to export these two, and these are going to be the bits of the HUD. So we're going to go File, Export as Wavefront Object, in Design. It's going to be HUD Face. And then this one can be object HUD band. We can
just save this in design as hood. And there we go. That's all we're going to do with Blender. I know it's a tool that a lot of people use for Lego stuff, like digital, even minifig design, but we don't do too much with Blender at the moment. I might switch to using Blender at some point because there are limitations to Studio, but we haven't got there yet, so just gonna leave this as is. I'm gonna go back to Studio, and then we're gonna import. Choose a file. We're going to import the untitled model to begin with, just so we can get the size correct. Now, it's showing 100% with these dimensions, but this is probably not correct, as I doubt it's this small. So we're actually going to go to Bricklink. We're going to search up the part. So this is in Ninjago. Actually, it'll tell us the part number, won't it? 40925. Now it's going to show us a bunch of results of this, but included should be our hood piece. Nope. Never mind. This J uses it. Consists of 4 parts. I'm just going to take this hood dimensions. And we can see here 1.4 by 1.5 by 1.9 centimeters. Of course, Studio is in studs, but one stud is 0.8 centimeters. Calculation is 1.4 divided by 0.8. Which gives us 1.75 studs. So the shortest dimension is 1.75. Just going to go here. We're going to put in here 1.75. And that gives us this scale, which we're just going to copy. And we're going to insert that. This will give us our framing so that we can figure out where our 2 pieces should go. So we're now going to import those other 2 parts at the same scale. So this is the hood band at this still 243 scale. And then we're going to import the hood base. And now we've got to make these perfectly sit within each other, which will require some positioning. So we can see this is at 0, 0, this is at different coordinates and so forth. We've just got to figure out how these lie with respect to each other. We're going to use this as our key. So we're just going to try and get this band aligned with the band on the original, so we can see that's not the correct coordinates. We're just going to trial and error back and forth until we get the exact position. Then once we've got the band in position, we can move this into position. And they're approximately lined up, but we can't tell for certain until we get rid of the original part. So we want the untitled object, and we're just going to move this to a position of 10. And we're looking to see if there's any gaps in our merger. Such as here, there's a gap here. We want to close that up. Without opening a gap on the other side, as that just did. That's as close as we can get. Any other gaps in here? Not noticeably, so that's cool. That is our legacy HUD in place. However, we do first need to export the headband separately so we can get the color, so that we can have the dual mold. So we're going to select the HUD band. We're going to export that separately. Then we're just going to go in here. I'm going to create a new file. And then in this new file, we're going to select our HUD band in our custom parts. Here we go. We're going to want this to be black. So the color's black. We're just going to export this as a Lego draw file. And then we can import that to Part Designer. And now we just give this band the positions that this band is in. So if we just increase this to 10, so it's out of the way. And then we're just going to give this the positions of this one. So and now, there we go, there's our legacy HUD piece, except we need to correct the attachment point. We need to add the connectivity. So what we're going to do is we're going to import a studio object of a different Ninja HUD, and then we're just going to take it from there. So we're going to go Ninja, and what do you know, this one should be pretty similar. Just going to take that. We're going to move this such that the circular center matches up with our legacy HUD. Actually, before we do that, let me just group these two together. Now we can move this. You see, slots in there pretty good. So we're just going to go to the connectivity. We're going to remove this from its current group. Wow, what was that? We're going to remove from group. We're going to move this. We're going to get rid of it. And then this can just be put in the new group. Like so. And there we go, there is our legacy HUD piece ready to use. So I'm just going to export this. We're going to call it this, but with black headband. Molded black. And be here. If we just search for it. There it is with some of our other HUD pieces. So we're just going to go back to this character here. We're just going to make a copy of him for now. And this copy, rather than using the Tournament of Sources armor and the half mask, is going to use this legacy HUD. So we can get rid of all this. The head can go down there. And then the HUD piece goes on like so.
And so, there we go. We have taken the legacy HUD piece and molded it to work in Bricklink Studio. I still prefer the suit in its original form, but this works too. Now, the big question. Is it efficient to import parts like this to Studio? Probably not. It's just a way of overcoming Studio's inherent problems, which is something that I have found myself doing quite a bit as of recent. For example, with my recent Digisuit Morrow design. The original Digisuits have printed crests on their ninja masks, but I was unable to do the same, as it turns out that Studio Part Designer lacks the functionality to print on imported objects, and you can't print on the design before importing it to Studio, as Part Designer ignores the .mtl files. This literally makes a design such as an accurate Digisuit impossible with Bricklink Studio. So what to do? I don't know yet. I'm currently looking into options, but it looks like I might have outgrown the possibilities of Bricklink Studio. That's not to say that you can't make awesome minifigures with it. I just showed you how you can craft something like my new sig-fig look that I'm speaking to you through right now. It has served me really well for the first 3 years of custom minifigure creation, with everything you see in front of you, and many more being made with it. The art of minifigure creation has been a long journey for me, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to share it all with you. Go, be creative. Take what you've learned and transform it into some truly spectacular minifigures. As I said earlier, I'd be more than happy to see what you can create, so feel free to tag one of my socials. Have fun, and thanks for watching.